Welcome to today's episode where we explore the journeys of those who lead, inspire, and make differences in their communities. If you are new here, I am Peace Warrior, a full-time content creator. I create helpful and insightful videos about God, games, and life. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and comment so we can grow here on YouTube. I would love to one day make partner and continue to bring you more awesome content. So joining us today is a multifaceted individual who excels not only in the virtual world of gaming, but also impacts the real world through his dedication and service. He is a devoted father, a passionate gamer, and serves as an assistant director at a very prestigious university where he plays a critical role in investigating campus incidents and overseeing student conduct. But that's not all. He is a man of faith who lives by the principle of never giving up on your dreams, a belief that guides him in every facet of his life. Beyond his professional and spiritual pursuits, he has keen interest in photography and is very eager to dive deeper in the art of photo editing. Please welcome, I call him Gamer, but his gamer tag is Gamerfreak4life. Welcome in. Okay, so your beginner questions. Are you watching the Fallout series?
Not as of yet. It is on my, to watch later list or whatever people call it these days
Yeah.
per whatever app you're on. But I have not watched it as of yet. I'm still trying to finish up Shogun right now.
Yeah.
And actually just started into one called Black Sails as well that used to be on, I think it was Stars. And at the time, I was really into the show Spartacus, Blood and Sand, and then that show ended and we got rid of Stars, and Black Sails was like their next big thing that came out, so I never got to watch it. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's about pirates and such. But
nice.
definitely on my to-be-watched soon list.
So I've already watched it 3 times, but you know I'm hardcore Fallout.
Yes, I do.
So, second question. What is your favorite game of all time?
Oh, that's easy. Favorite, well, I don't know if it's easy. Favorite series would be easier, but favorite game, I'm probably going to go with probably Shenmue 2 out of the Shenmue series.
Mm-hmm.
The series would have been, if you'd said series, it would have been a Shenmue series, but picking between 1 and 2 was harder. But yeah, that game, the first one really resonated with me. I was a huge Dreamcast fan growing up, and that was like the killer app, or at least it was supposed to have been the killer app for Dreamcast. And the story was so good, and then the second game just built on everything the first one did, and then all of a sudden it ended in this massive cliffhanger, and you're just so inspired by playing it. It's just really stuck with me forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
And so it's been a very hard one to dethrone, although I will say Hellblade came close.
Nice. Okay, so I know you're a family man, so what are some go-to family meals that you must have weekly? Because mine is tacos.
That's actually one of ours. So easy. Yeah, definitely tacos. I mean, everyone seems like, even my daughter, she's a horrible eater. She will at least eat like the beef, like not on a taco per se, but like the individual pieces, like on a plate. So like she'll do that. So yeah, it works well for us. But lately though, we put on there like cheeseburgers, just like in the on the stove, like in a skillet or whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, grilling those would be great too when it finally gets warm enough.
Yeah, really.
And Jekyll and Hyde on us. But,
yeah.
Frozen pizza tends to always be on there, although I am so sick of pizza.
Oh, yeah,
now.
I bet.
I would do anything I could to get that off of that menu. Those are probably the 3 like go-tos, and then like we kind of change up the others. Like I'll get creative sometimes, like, oh, I want to try something, or we'll like, or if we're being lazy, we'll throw something in like the air fryer, or chicken strips or something like that. But,
yeah, I just recently got an air fryer, and I like it.
Amazing.
Yeah. Give me an introduction and a little bit of a background. Tell me a little bit about yourself and the journey of where you are today.
Sure. Well, I go by Gamerfreak4life on all gaming settings and in Discord as well, just because. So yeah, I grew up in the Midwest, in Ohio. Stayed there most of my life, really, until I went to college. Ended up going to college over in Indiana. It took me 5 years to get through college because I took, as I like to say, a red shirt year my freshman year.
Yeah.
It
And
was
what
just
is
a lot of
that?
me not doing what I should have. So that's a nod to sporting, but so like,
Oh,
athletes would redshirt their first year as they like get stronger or get more skilled in like the sport that they're playing.
yeah.
So for me, I just, instead of saying, being a fifth year senior, I like to say I took a red shirt my freshman year and then did my next 4 years. But yeah, basically I was being stupid my freshman year, not going to college and chasing women and that sort of thing. So,
You was just having a fun time, and then you got
yeah.
serious.
Yes. And I settled down and figured out, hey, I actually have to study in college.
Yeah,
So,
that's what this building is for.
yes, exactly. Yeah, started studying, started going to class, ended up, I made a 2.0 my first semester, 2.1 my second semester, so I ended up with like a 2.05 my freshman year, hence I took a red shirt. But yeah, I ended up, pulling my crap together and graduating with, it was like a 3.4-ish. I think 3.41 might have been it. But yeah, during that time, actually, I became an RA, which stands for resident assistant for those who are unaware. And I really kind of fell in love with that job, honestly, and didn't realize it though until I was graduating college, trying to, figure out what I actually wanted to do with my life, aside from play video games all the time.
Yeah, I mean, who
And
doesn't want to play video games all the time?
I know, right? Yeah, because like professional gaming back then was not a thing
Yeah,
at
I
all.
know.
Like we used to talk about it and be like, "Hey, this would be amazing," and like
If we
now
could only do this for a job.
I know, right? Yeah, missed that boat 10 years early.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I ended up getting, graduating and getting into a job in the Chicago area. I worked at a corporate headquarters for an insurance company and absolutely loathed that job. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how much I hated that job.
It sounds terrible.
It was terrible. Like I dreaded going to work every day. And really it was about 3 months into that job I decided like, why can't I be an RA for the rest of my life? Realizing that the people who supervise the RAs are actually professionals, like adults, and like they get paid like reasonable salaries and
Yeah.
like stuff like that. And so, yeah, just the light bulb went off 3 or 4 months later than it should have, basically. So, but yeah, so I started applying to those jobs. Actually, I interviewed and was a finalist for a couple of jobs, and ultimately ended up going to graduate school, which to get those types of jobs, generally speaking, you had to have a master's degree.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that's asinine.
Yeah, that is asking a lot.
I don't, it's street cred. That's all it is. You don't really use what you learn in the graduate programs for the most part in that job. You just don't. You put out a lot of fires is what you do, and you have fun. Like that's really the most of it. So, but yeah, so I ended up going to graduate school back in Ohio. I was trying to do the whole like, hey, I'm an in-state person. I never pay taxes anywhere but Ohio. So, just to get as low a tuition as I could, because I had already taken out, God, I don't know, probably $80,000 in student loans, maybe 60,000. I don't quite remember anymore.
Yeah.
In student loans for my undergrad school because I was an out-of-state student at a state school. So I paid like $30,000 a year to go there. So,
yikes.
Yeah, I know, right? Hence I became an RA because that paid pretty well at that school.
Yeah.
Like actually the first year I was an RA, I paid my entire tuition as an out-of-state student. So
very nice.
Yay for a free year.
Yeah.
Actually, government paid me money to go to school that year, so I got a Pell Grant. So
very nice.
Yeah. But yeah, so I went to grad school in Ohio because that wasn't going to happen again. So, but yeah, I ended up getting my graduate degree in a program called Student Affairs in Higher Education. Completed the program in 2 years, and coming out of that program, I had multiple offers to go do what my dream job was at the time, which was a residence hall director, residence hall coordinator, whatever you want to call it. There's like multiple different names for the same thing around the country. But yeah, I ended up taking a job at down in North Carolina, on the eastern side of North Carolina, at a state school there. Stayed there for 4 years, and while I was there, my final year there was actually when my son was born. And then also we had a lot of very tragic things happen in a 6-month time span between the month before my son was born and I think it's like 5 months after my son was born. So
yeah,
we had a dog get killed at a training, like a trainer was training our dog, and our dog got killed like a couple weeks before my son was born. So then we proceeded to sue that person, and we won, but it costs a lot of money to sue people, so I don't
Yeah, it
recommend it
does.
unless
It
you're going to
does.
get a large payout.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then my son was born, which was the happy thing in all of this.
Yeah.
He was born, healthy and all that. It was our first kid. So, new parents trying to figure all this stuff out.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. And then my wife's father ended up going into the hospital like 2 or 3 weeks after our son was born. Never left the hospital, ended up passing away after the first of the year.
Aw.
So this was like November when my son was born.
Yeah.
And before that, though, before her dad passed away, her great aunt passed away like, I think it was like the day after Christmas,
Mhm.
I think. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was. I know it was like my niece's birthday that she passed away because they were supposed to have the birthday at the nursing home.
Yeah.
That obviously did not happen.
Aw.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the day after Christmas that she passed. But she was like 90 some odd. Like she had lived a long life. She was
Yeah.
a fantastic woman. And then, what was it? After her dad passed, then in early January, like a best friend of their family passed away like 2 weeks after her dad, which was crazy timing because it was like her dad's best friend, like growing up, and her mom's best friend growing up, and yeah. So that was, and then my dad actually passed away a couple months after that. So it was a trying 6 months, to have a new child and adjusting all of that, but then also just all the bad things happening all at once, And
Yeah.
we kept telling ourselves like bad things come in threes. This has got to be it right here,
Yeah.
And luckily my dad was the last of it. So
Yeah. It
least for a
seems
little
like
while,
one
anyway.
thing starts and then it just, when it rains, it pours.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so like I said, that was my last year though at that university. I ended up leaving and coming back to Ohio at a state school there, in exactly the same kind of position. We wanted to get closer to family before it was too late for our son to know his family. So, a lot of deaths in a short period of time will do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I took a job back in Ohio, state school, stayed there for a year because it was so cliquey. Oh my God. Like I was there for a year and I felt like I didn't know anybody I worked with. It was that cliquey.
Oh,
Like it
wow.
was ridiculous. I remember that we had this, I think it was like a monthly meeting of like a committee or like even not even really a committee, more just like as like the hall director group or whatever, and like things that you don't like, the things you can do better. And I
Yeah.
remember writing on this, secret ballot thing. It's like, it'd be nice to feel like if I was on a team, like mostly I just feel like we're just a bunch of people here and no one reaches out to talk to me at all, which was the honest to God truth.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I left after a year, went to a small private school then in Ohio as an assistant director of residential life for upper class housing. The job was very similar to what I had been doing in that I was still supervising students. However, I had oversight of more residence halls, so multiple residence halls instead of just one.
Mhm.
And also then supervising through students to other students, because the model was they had like their RAs and then they had their like, I forget what they called them, to be honest. Like a staff resident is
Mhm.
what I would call them in undergrad. I just can't remember what they call them now.
Yeah.
But so I just supervised through like the staff resident to, the RAs and like help them learn to be better supervisors of like their peers and that sort of thing. Stayed there for about a year and a half, and my supervisor there was just awful, very toxic. Like she's one of these people who expected me to answer emails at 3 a.m. And
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
no, I am not on call. Like when you're on call, okay, that maybe, because
Yeah.
like stuff happens, you're
Yeah.
expected to respond. But like I was not on call and she's expecting me to answer emails at 3 a.m. I'm like, you're nuts. Absolutely not. Like I've got a family and I need my sleep.
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up leaving there after a year and a half just because it got so toxic. Like she was actually moving to try and like get rid of me. And so I preempted that by saying, F you, I'm out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and just looking back on it, there were signs I should have seen that I didn't see until, hindsight's 2020. So,
Yeah.
but I did learn a lot about the questions to ask in interviews as a result of that position. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I left there and then ended up working at a men's warehouse for the next 3 years when I left. and worked up from just, your full-time sales associate. I actually ended up becoming the manager of the store a year and a half later.
Ooh,
And then
nice.
stayed in that role for a year and a half before COVID hit and the store, shut down. And then we got a new district manager, and she was just as toxic as my supervisor at that small private school I was at. So,
Wow.
yeah, so I dealt with her for 6 months before I said I'm out. So, honestly, I had a lot of fun in that job. It was a nice break from the monotony of what higher education can be. But yeah, but yeah, I ended up leaving and then getting a job actually teaching physical education at a charter school. So like I had to go and get my what do you call it? My sub license. Because in Ohio it's pretty easy. As long as you have a bachelor's degree, you can get your sub license. Like it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter what you major in. So I was like, well, I got that and then some. So and my wife is actually a school teacher, and she was teaching at that school that I got the job at teaching phys ed. And so, yeah, I did that for a few months, and I knew pretty darn quickly this was not sustainable. Just, I am an introvert, and I expect people to follow directions, just who I am.
Yeah.
And this was a charter school in a large city, and it was a very, very heavily Somali population.
Uh-huh.
And if you know anything about Somali culture, it is, at least my impression of it and what I remember from that time there. So if I'm wrong, I apologize to the Somali culture. But from what I remember is that it's a very heavily patriarchal culture. And so, in a lot of these families, the oldest man, usually the husband, sometimes the grandfather, depending, who all lives with who, would go out and they'd be the breadwinners. They'd be gone like on the road working, for months at a time.
Mhm.
And because of how heavily patriarchal it is, the mothers, if they have a son, have almost no say in that household. It's the son who has the say. And if that son's a kindergartner, first grader, second grader, third grader on up, they become man in the house at that age.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can imagine.
Oh, no.
So then they come to school and they get told to do stuff and they don't like it very much.
Oh, no, no, no.
And like me being a man made it a little easier than like the female teachers.
Yeah.
But I was literally yelling and screaming at kids each and every day for 8 hours a day. It was awful. Like, stress for me, I tend to carry it in like my chest and my stomach, and so like I'll get upset stomachs and stuff from it.
Yeah,
But
me
like,
too.
oh man, that 6 months,
Oh,
I've never
yeah.
been so stressed. But yeah, I knew pretty quick into that was not sustainable. So I think it was September. So like I started, their school started early too. It was like July that they started school. So like I've been teaching for about 2 months, and it's like beginning September, and I started looking on a website that people who work in higher education look for jobs. It's called like higheredjobs.com. It's a very common one. So if anybody works in higher ed hears this, like, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just kind of perusing on there. I was looking for not a res life position, which is what I was in currently with like, the housing and all that. Just because like I felt like I was done in that field. Like I couldn't, with the family, sustain what I was doing there. I could not live in again like I had been doing previously. Because in those jobs, a lot of times you live in the residence halls in an apartment among the students. And like now I have 2 kids, and that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I started looking into student conduct, which was about half of what I did as a residence hall director. And I always kind of enjoyed doing conduct, but I kind of developed a passion for doing it while I was teaching phys ed because of how poorly behaved these students were. And when I would, write them up, nothing happening to them at the administrative level.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, give me that position. You cannot do that. These students learn absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Like there's got to be guidelines, principles, all this sort of thing, and they've got to be enforced. Otherwise, what the hell is the point of having rules?
Yeah, exactly.
So it actually ended up, I saw there was a job posted at my graduate school that I had attended. And I knew that the director in that office was somebody I had gone to grad school with. In fact, he had been my grad school mentor while I was there. He was 1 year ahead of me in the program. And so the job, it looked like it had been posted in June. And then, this is now September. So I reached out to my mentor and I was like, hey, is this job potentially still open? I know it's been a while, but I'm interested if it is. And he sent me a message right back, and he's like, actually, it was a failed search. We're about to reopen it. I'll call you in 5 minutes. So he called me in 5 minutes. We talked about it. He's like, yeah, man, totally apply. Like, the job's yours. So
Yay, win for you.
maybe not quite in so many words, but I had the inside track, we'll say. But, because I knew the director, he knew me, like, we knew how we both operated. It was just a match made in heaven. And so, yeah, I interviewed and all that, went through the process, and by December, I had a job offer. They had to go through the whole process, and a state school tends to take a little while sometimes. So, hence the 3 months I had to wait to get the offer. But yeah, so I had the offer. I put in my 2 weeks notice and left, and now I'm an assistant director of community standards and student conduct at my graduate school. And my job is to meet with students who have been, as they say, documented, but more colloquially written up for doing something they likely should not have been doing in the first place. And then my job is then to investigate, meet with them, hear their side of the story, and then act as judge and semi-executioner, because we don't actually kill anybody, but assign sanctions, we'll say, to the student as a result of their behaviors, hopefully teaching them and incentivizing them to not make the same mistake again. However, I do currently have a student who I just had to meet with 2 months ago and who did the exact same thing, only worse this time around. So yeah, she's got another thing coming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, you know what they say. I think might have been Billingville. Like, you can't fix stupid. I think that's how it goes. But yeah.
Okay.
But
so,
yeah.
what are some lessons that you've learned looking back? What are the most important lessons that you've learned through all of the trials you've been through so far?
Oh gosh. First and foremost, do not give up on your dream. Because when I was an RA, I kind of like, oh, I wish I could be an RA, and I just left it at that. Like, I really didn't think about it being an actual thing. And I realized pretty quickly that was my dream at the time. And so after having gone after it and then getting in that type of role and being in that role for almost a decade, most of my fondest memories of working are in that kind of role and working with those students. So yeah, go after your dream. Don't be held back. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not feasible. Like my father, actually, when I was working at that insurance job, he very much tried to talk me down from leaving that job and going after this thing. And luckily for me, I didn't listen to him. So
sometimes it's best
don't
not
let
to
anyone.
listen. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Obviously, honor your mother and your father, but like, they are not you. Only you can know what is right truly for you. Take that, take what they say as like your advisor, but be able to work within the bounds of that advice.
Yeah. Don't just conform to whatever they want you to be.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's a big one. Another thing too is don't settle. Don't settle for it good enough. Go after what it is that you really want. Maybe you're with a person that you're like, oh, well, this person likes me and they're kind of cool and whatever, but like, if that's not who you actually want to be with, don't sell yourself short. If they're not right for you, don't just stay in that relationship.
Yeah.
I was notorious for that. So
yeah, don't conform.
Yes,
that's a lesson for today. Do not conform.
Yes, do not conform.
Okay, so are there any current or future projects that you're working on, or what do we expect to see from you in the future? I know you like photography.
Yeah. I'm trying to grow my photography business, we'll say. I have a website and I sell prints and I will book clients, although right now it's been real slow going on both of those fronts.
And I will put all of his links in the description below.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
that. But yeah, so it's been real slow going. But I'm told all the time, like, I take very good photos. It's not like my wife telling me I take really good photos. It's like people in and around me, and it might just be a random person who's like, oh my gosh, that's a beautiful picture. And maybe they're being, polite, but like I also compete on an app called Guru Shots, which is like a photography game, and I'm constantly placing in these competitions in the top 100 or top 50 or top 25, depending on
Nice.
what the thing is. And I think I take, personally looking at, I think I take decent photos. Yes, I can improve. And I think that's really what I'm trying to do, is to improve my photography by learning the art of editing. Like there's photos I've edited recently that I thought I had edited previously. I did edit previously, but now I am learning that different software can do different things. Like if you edit in the photo app on your phone, it's decent.
Yeah.
But then you get into Lightroom, let's say, and oh my gosh, it's night and day different.
Oh yeah.
But so yeah, just learning the ins and outs of editing. Because yes, truly editing is part of photography, people. It's not just you take a picture and it's perfect.
It can be so annoying to edit something, but it is truly part of the art itself. So it's
100%. Yeah, and editing truly is an art.
Yes.
If not anyone can do it. Anyone can learn it.
Yes.
But you have to learn what looks good to the masses too.
Yes.
But yeah, so learning more on the editing side of things, also trying to get better equipment, honestly. My camera is a Canon M50, and it's decent, but it's like 24.1 megapixels, I think, which generally speaking is pretty good. And it's got me to where I'm at this point. However, I'm limited by a lot of the algorithms with autofocus on that camera.
Mm-hmm.
And truly that camera was more meant for people who create video. A lot of YouTubers actually started using Canon M50s, and originally that's what I bought it for too, but just too much time in YouTube to do anything.
Yeah. I have a Nikon Coolpix L110, and it's the opposite. Yeah. They say it's better for photography, not videos. So I'm like, well, fine,
Nikon
it's going to the shelf.
Was slow to the videography game. Canon kind of lived in that area, and they had specialized cameras more for videography, and some were more specialized for photography. But so I was trying to use the more specialized videography camera for photography, and like I said, it's fine. Like I get good pictures out of it, but could I use a better autofocus to track, like I do like nature and animal photography, to track like eyes on that? Yes, it would, because they can only track human eyes.
Yeah.
So
it'd be really cool to track a deer's eyes or a rabbit.
Yeah, deer or like a bird in flight.
Yeah.
Like the camera I'm looking at can do that.
Oh, yeah. So you have projects you're saving for. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like new camera body, which I know photographers listen. It's like, you don't need a new camera body. It's the lenses. And like, yes, that's true. However, if you can't get the autofocus down to make your life easier, you're stuck with manual focus, and that's slow.
And you don't really have that time when you're about to snap a shot. It's like, now.
Like you don't know what's going to happen when, so you have to be ready to react in a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But so I'm saving for that. I'm saving for better lenses as well. So, my lenses I have some what they call prime lenses, which are sharper lenses, but they are in like 16 millimeter and 56 millimeter. And actually have a 100 millimeter macro lens as well, which all my real close-up shots that you might have seen, that's taken with that 100 millimeter macro. It's an amazing lens.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm hoping to get a more like wildlife focused lens, to where it's a sharper lens, like higher quality. Maybe I'm thinking probably a prime lens, like 400 to somewhere between 400 and 600 millimeters.
Yeah.
But those are not cheap. Even the used ones are not cheap. Lenses hold their value really, really well.
Technology
I may end up
itself
selling
is just,
my camera. So I may end up selling my camera to get the body for almost what I could sell the for almost what I'm getting it for. It might be a couple $100 difference, rather than me paying $1,400 for a new camera. So
there you go.
And then just focus on lenses at that point, which would make some sense.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what I'm focused on at this point, is just really trying to grow that photography business side of things. I don't necessarily I don't know if I want to do that full time per se, but it could be a nice side hustle. Absolutely. It could be a nice side hustle. I think my end goal, honestly, with that would be to get my photos published in some way or another, not self-publishing, but like,
art galleries.
I think every photographer like an art gallery would be really cool. Or like, this is like every photographer's dream, but like National Geographic or something like that,
Oh,
like
yeah,
that'd be
yeah,
really
yeah.
super cool.
That
But
would be
yeah,
cool.
just to have other people take notice and be like, yes, this is a really good photograph, like that's the kind of recognition I guess I want to see. I mean, obviously monetary would be nice too, but I'm not trying to become a millionaire with my photography. So
Hey, from your lips to God's ears, maybe. You never know.
hey, yeah, you never know. If it happens, it happens. I won't complain.
All right, and now you know what time it is.
Hold up.
Yes, I think you're talking about them real questions.
It's time to go off the deep end.
All right,
Yeah,
man.
indeed.
So, since this is a faith-based podcast, I want to go into more personal and profound aspects of your spiritual journey. So,
Okay.
your relationship with God. Here are 5 thought-provoking questions. Are you ready?
I'm as ready as I'm gonna be. So I guess I'll caveat that by saying I don't generally talk about this with anyone, like
Okay,
ever. To me, it's
I
a
feel
very something I've
special.
kept close to like the chest, as you would say.
Yes.
But yeah, so yeah, here
Okay,
we go.
so-
We'll see how I can put this into words.
Number 1, what is your personal belief system and how has it shaped your worldview?
Yeah. So I do identify as a Christian. I was brought up in the Episcopal Church. I grew up in the Episcopal Church. I was an acolyte in that church for, oh gosh, probably 10 years growing up. I was also in the children's choir. That was kind of forced by my father. But, and really just, that was I guess the church culture / family and everything that I have known my whole life and really have ascribed to, or I guess subscribe to, maybe that's a better word. But yeah, it's whenever I go to another church, I compare everything to that church, like whether it's the building itself, the service, the priest or the pastor,
Yeah.
all those sorts of things, and then just what all of my belief systems are very closely aligned to what I learned growing up in the Episcopal Church as well. But like recently, like within the last couple of years since we moved to the town that we live in now, we've been going to, actually it's a church like right across the street from where we live. It's a Methodist church. And I always like the more traditional kind of churches. I guess that's what I grew up in, with the organs and kind of the old stuff. And I don't know, to me, it's closer to God, right? It's older, it's closer to Jesus.
Yeah, I don't want to go to a
historically.
concert.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this one's more of a concert. And like, although I don't particularly care for like the songs because it's definitely more new age and yeah. But like, the lessons taught by the pastor, I think, generally speaking, are pretty good. I do take issue with some of them, but I really do like him as a person. I think he's a really good person. But I think he and I would differ on some of our views of the world.
So how has this influenced your life or your relationship with God or the higher power?
Yeah, I think if nothing else, it set a foundation, an unbreakable foundation that I don't know that I've ever really wavered in my belief. Have I ever been mad at God? Yeah. I mean, bad stuff happens and you're looking for someone to blame. Is that necessarily fair? No. But we're human. We're not perfect.
Yeah.
And so, we just, have to, give it back to God, repent, apologize, and just try to do better going forward to be the person that God wants us to be.
Yeah, turn from your wicked ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think and again, not that I ever strayed, but I think the only time I was not really going to church more regularly, almost intentionally, was during college, honestly, for the first probably 3 years at college.
So it's
Gosh,
like
really,
you
probably,
knew you were doing
first 3.
wrong, so you were running from the Lord.
Yeah, it was maybe some of that. Maybe, honestly, I think I was just making excuses too. So I was like, oh, well, there's not an Episcopal church around here, so I'm not going to go, and, I ended up making friends with another one of my RAs, who was, for lack of a better way of saying this, very religious. but very in tune with his religious side, I guess we'll say. And I started going to church with him, and it was a Baptist church. Again, not my cup of tea, but
I grew up in a Baptist church.
Yeah.
Pretty
But,
loud.
oh yes, loud and, but so yeah, not my cup of tea, but, it still gave me that kind of spiritual, teachings, lessons, like, that you would get just by going to church.
Yeah. So can you share a pivotal moment in your life where you felt very distant from God, and how did the experience transform your relationship with him?
It's hilarious actually. It took meeting a girl,
Mm-hmm.
not my wife,
Yeah.
but ironically, it was a girl who I met right before I met my wife. Actually,
Yeah.
it's kind of the irony of that. But yeah, so I was still kind of, I guess we'll say, dabbling in college and religion,
Mhm.
but that going to the Baptist church and whatever, and I started falling off the tracks again, as we'll say. Just with going to church, not necessarily with belief, but just not really taking it seriously, I guess you could say. But yeah, I met this girl online, and it was very clear very quickly that she was very, very, very in tune with her religious side, with being a Christian.
Mhm.
And I was just looking at her like, my God, this girl's gorgeous. I need to do something.
Yeah.
Really, though, it influenced me more to look seriously at what it means to be a Christian, and the praying regularly and doing good things and helping others, not expecting
anything in return.
a reward.
Yeah.
And so it was really that kind of influence that was kind of a turning point, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
And ironically enough, my wife, who I met while I was talking with this girl, I had to make a choice between this girl and my wife in the moment.
Oh.
So, like, my now wife was over visiting, because it's like I was dating, we weren't latched down to anything.
Yeah.
However, my wife hates being in that type of relationship.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was my first foray into ever doing that. It's like I said, I used to settle for people and, and
Yeah.
whatever. But yeah, I was trying to do the thing where, like, hey, you date some people, you figure out what you like, So, and my wife was over at my residence hall at the time, and we were watching a movie, chatting, something. I don't remember exactly what we were doing. We were sitting on like the futon, and then this other girl texted me, and of course, my now wife didn't like that this girl had texted me.
Yeah.
So she like stormed out, and so I had to make a choice in that moment. Like, did I want this girl who was texting me, or did I want my wife?
Yeah.
And I ultimately decided that what I had in front of me was better than, the bird in my hand was worth more than the bird in the bush.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but what I realized though was that, and I told this girl this, that I felt like while we weren't necessarily meant to date, that I think God put us together in a sense to bring me back closer to Him.
Yeah.
And she was thrilled by that statement. And it wasn't just me playing lip service either. Like, I truly believe that.
Yeah.
So,
hey, sometimes we're tested in weird ways, and God shows up in weird ways.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I definitely reformed me into the person who more closer to the person who I used to be when I was like the straight edge, we'll say.
Yeah. So, faith challenges. How do you maintain your faith in moments of doubt or facing criticism about your faith? What practical steps do you take to fortify your belief or trust in God?
I guess I'll start by saying I've never really had my faith challenged per se. I've never had anybody like persecute me for being a Christian or anything like that. So I'm not real wise on that. I know it happens around the world in different areas, but living in the Midwest, you don't see too much of that. Or really in the South when I was down there either. So, but as far as like what I do to sustain it, I make an effort to pray every single night before I go to sleep. It's like part of my like bedtime ritual. I make efforts to thank God for everything that happened in that day. Try not to forget anything, but I am human, so I usually try and put like a caveat statement or anything else I've forgotten. But just that, and and I do that first and foremost is giving thanks back to God, because without Him nothing is possible.
Yeah.
So and then after that I might begin to ask for blessings on, people who need it, or my family, or, those sorts of things, or maybe just some requests I have for myself, like telling my parents who are deceased, that I love them and I miss them, stuff like that. Or, yeah. And then, from there it goes into saying, prayer of serenity and the Lord's Prayer, and that's kind of how I end the prayer every single time, is those two prayers.
Nice.
And the prayer of serenity was honestly something that has sustained me in really dark times. When just nothing was going right, when it seemed like no matter what I did, it just effed stuff up. But it was remembering that God is there to catch us, and He is there to if we give it all to Him, He makes it better. And accepting the way things are, but always trying to make things better. Kind of what that prayer says. Trusting that you being God, you will make all things right if I but surrender to your will. So I mean, I haven't thing memorized. I've had it memorized for a long, long time, and I will, in trial times, I tend to hear it in the back of my mind.
That is your battle cry.
Yeah, exactly.
So we all have a battle cry in the back that's supposed to overpower the darkness is trying to take us over. So mine, it can. I could not tell you a Bible verse at certain times, and then it will just bam, be right there.
Yeah, same. Yeah, like I couldn't rattle off any Bible verse, just sitting here talking to you. But I remember sitting in a church meeting when we first started going to this Methodist church we've been going to now, and they were talking about the pastor who had previously been there and how he had stolen like $100,000 from the church, and all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there. Of course, I'm working student conduct. I'm like, they're going to let him off, whatever. And then, the verse, somebody asked Jesus about like, well, what about paying taxes to the Romans and this, that? And Jesus said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and render unto God that which is God's.
Amen.
And that was what kept going through my head. I was like, no, we got to hold him accountable in the human world, but he's ultimately also going to be held accountable to God.
Yeah, that's way worse.
Oh, yes, exactly. It's like, do not let him off.
No. And people think, hey, I got away with it here in the human world. You just wait till you meet the big guy.
Yeah, you think it's bad now, just wait.
Yeah. So divine interventions. Can you share an experience where you felt a very clear message from God? How did this experience affect your interpretation or guidance for your life?
So back when I was hating my life at that job out of college, it was so clear as day to me that I needed to go into higher education and, be a residence hall director. Like, it was more than a light bulb, honestly. It was an absolute, like an engine had been placed inside of me by a higher power, like the Red Seas had parted, and it was just absolutely clear what I was supposed to do.
Yeah, and you saw where you were supposed to be.
Yeah, the only other time I've been more clear is when I knew I wanted to ask my wife to marry me,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, aside from that, like I always struggle with seeing signs. Like, I never knew when a girl liked me until they actually just straight up said it.
Yeah.
Like I suck at it.
Girls can be finicky, so you never know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they might just being nice, and then we interpret that as them flirting with us.
Yeah.
It's like,
and then you've gone
so
too far,
you just stop trying.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, when that happened, I mean, it was just so clear as day. It was almost as if someone had took my hand and was pulling me towards where I was supposed to be. Like, that's the only way I can really describe it. Like, I've never been so sure of anything in my life other than marrying my wife.
I got one more question, but I'm trying to decide which one I want to ask you. So, see, spiritual growth and inspiration. So how does your faith or your spirituality influence your daily life and your choices? I find that it shows up in how I parent, how I create content, how I show up for others. So I'd love to hear how you use your faith throughout the day.
I guess truthfully, I don't think about it too much in my day to day. I know it's like always there, but like, I don't necessarily look to it in the day to day. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, as I'm thinking through a decision, I'm not thinking about, the Bible verses or anything like that. However, I do think, though, that the way I live my life and just my morals and ethics, how I was raised, align incredibly well in general to the teachings that, Jesus passed on to us from God. And I think by virtue of that, I almost unintentionally use, faith in what I do.
Yeah.
And so I use it in talking through, like with students, about their decisions, about how to be a good human being. Because generally speaking, like, even if you're not a Christian, but if like you followed Christian teachings, like just in how they say a person should act,
Yeah.
generally speaking, you're going to be a very good person.
Yeah.
So yeah, it works really well in a lot of ways with that. With what I try and teach my kids, and helping others. Actually, our friend Kill,
Yeah.
when he was down on his luck and everything, like he
You
was
knew
out of
immediately
tea.
to help him.
Yeah, I knew immediately. Yeah, like I
Same.
ordered him some tea on Amazon, and
Same.
I didn't have but $20 in my checking account. But you know what? Darn it, I
Dude.
spent $8 on Kill to send him some tea because he was worse off than I was.
They say don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. So
Right.
I had a birthday stream, and all the money
Mhm.
that I made on my stream, I turned around and gave it to Kel
Oh wow, that's amazing.
for his groceries because he had nothing.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
But it was just an instant. He needs you.
yeah.
I'm going to be there.
Right. Yeah, and my feeling was, you know what? It's like, we had $20 checking account. Like we're up against it until we get paid, which was in another week. But honestly, we didn't have any bills coming out or anything. Like it was just kind of chilling.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm gonna take $8 and help somebody who's in more dire need than I am, who doesn't even have $20.
And I bet you got that back in some form or fashion.
Ironically, I did, because once he got back on his feet, he I can't remember if he PayPal. I think he PayPal'd. Yeah, he PayPal'd me money to go get coffee one morning.
Yeah.
When I didn't have money. So.
Kill is an amazing soul.
Yes, he is.
He is one to hold on to, and I hope to see great things from him in the future.
Oh, absolutely. I have no doubt that we will. He's come so far, and the thing about him is, like, he always gives it to his supporters too. He never takes credit for any of it.
No,
when really he should.
Yeah, it's always the ones that have been hurt so much that just still continue to give, even though they don't have it to give.
Yeah, totally. Like his journey, just from where he has been when I first met him to now, it's an amazing thing to behold.
It is. I'm so happy to be a part of it. I'm so happy to be a part of your journey, and I hope that you continue to let me tag along here.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to. I'm happy you've let me into your inner circle, we'll say.
Yeah,
and,
it's a very tight circle.
It is. I felt very privileged when you do that. And I still remember what you said to me is, don't make me regret it.
Yeah, so far you haven't. I mean, you showed up, and I was like, how long do I get to keep you before you leave?
Right? No, I plan to stick around. I am an introvert, so I forget to say things sometimes, or I'm just like in a moment where I'm like, nope.
Same.
Like,
if I speak to one, I got to speak to them all, so nope.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So, but no, I'm happy to be, in your circle, and, likewise, happy to support you in what you're doing, and, very, thankful to have this opportunity to have been on your podcast and answer some of your questions and share stuff with you that I haven't necessarily said out loud ever before.
Well, I am very honored to be the person that you said it to.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I hope I hope what I've said touches somebody or reaches somebody who needs to hear it, honestly. And
yeah.
There's a lot of people who are facing very serious challenges in their life. If something I can say or do to help them, like, I'm all for it.
Yes. You're an amazing soul, Gamer, and I thank you so much for being here. And thank you for listening if you're still here. I really appreciate all the love and support you guys are giving me. Please join us next time for more episodes filled with faith, courage, and incredible stories that motivate us to keep fighting the good fight. Until we meet again, peace be with you all.